So welcome to this Facebook Live on connecting to your inner resources. So we all have the capacity to get lost in fear. This doesn't help the body heal. Or we can connect to that part of us that has the capacity for wisdom, calm, resourcefulness, etc. So I'm going to start with a few core concepts. You don't have to embrace any of these concepts, but I believe that embracing them is helpful. So the first concept, the fight or flight or fight, flight, freeze mechanism hinders the body's healing. If we are in fear, then the body stays in fight or flight. The mind, the brain, the body think we are in danger. The body is on alert, which means it doesn't do essential tasks. For example, repair tasks that the body needs doing. This is one of the things that happens when we achieve deep, restful sleep. The body does repair work, and when we're in fight or flight, we don't achieve that state of deep sleep. One of the ways we can trigger the fight or flight is via our mind. Our mind can generate dramatic physiological changes in our body. For example, people can be sitting in a chair doing nothing but moving pieces of wood and can activate the same level of stress as athletes. The answer is chess players. So we know also anthropologists have studied societies which doctors put a curse on people telling them they're going to die, and they've actually monitored that person, monitored what's going on physiologically, and they find that this person has such a strong belief that that's going to happen that their sympathetic arousal is very heightened, and they believe that that's what causes people to actually die, is they're in such a state of stress that causes them, cardiac arrest or whatever it is. We also know just watching a scary movie can trigger the fight or flight. This is examples of how our mind can trigger effects in the body. I used to do this exercise when I do free talks, but I used to say to people, I want you to imagine standing near to the edge of a cliff. And now imagine taking a step forward so you're right close to the edge. And some people look completely relaxed, but most people, you can see their face tighten up as they're imagining that. And, they're just sitting in a chair, but they're imagining that, and that's causing, some people say, I feel my heart beating when I imagine that, or my stomach getting tight. Therefore, just triggering all those responses via their mind. We can release powerful hormones in the body. So the next core concept is that switching off the sympathetic and switching on the parasympathetic nervous system helps the body heal. There are many ways of doing this, and if you've got a way of doing that that's consistently worked for you, that's great. Next concept. Our thoughts and responses are either helpful or unhelpful. I believe that our unhelpful responses are driven by fear, and our helpful responses are driven by a sense of trust. So when we're in that fearful place, some people call it the lower self, it's fear-based, we're generating anxiety, we're often catastrophizing, we can be quite reactive, and often this is just an old habit. It's old programming, it's a learned behavior. Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, says that the untrained mind goes to the negative. And some people call this place when we're in that sort of helpful response, trust-based, the higher self, when we're pragmatic, we're just responding with wisdom, with calm, with pragmatism. Some people call that the true self. If we practice helpful thinking, we get good at it. A friend of mine gives the example of one time she was going on holiday with her husband. She got to the airport, they opened the boot of the taxi, and there was only one suitcase in the taxi. So she said to her husband, "Where's my suitcase?" He said, "I think I saw your suitcase in the kitchen. Now, she said that in the past, she would have been instantly threatening her husband with divorce, but because she'd learned these tools to manage her state, she very quickly recognised that that wouldn't be very helpful. She thought to herself, I've been looking forward to this holiday, I worked hard for it, and I'm going to enjoy it. So when I get to duty free, I'm going to buy some cosmetics. When I get to the resort, I'll buy a couple of swimsuits, I'll buy an outfit for the evening, and my husband can pay. The question is, how many people would have allowed that to spoil at least the first day of their holiday? They'd be sitting in some lovely restaurant, eating lovely food in stony silence because they'd fallen out over this. But she decided, actually, I'm just going to respond in a more resourceful way. If we practice our unhelpful thinking, then we can get really good at that, and we're less good at doing all the helpful stuff. Next concept, we can't always control the environment, but we have choices about how we respond. In the training that I deliver, I talk about this concept, E plus R equals O, where E is the event, R is the response, and O is the outcome. As we've just discussed, we can respond in two key ways, either in a helpful way or an unhelpful way. We can break this down further. So remember, E is the event. So the event might be anything, might be stuck in traffic, and we can respond in one of three ways. We can respond in a negative way, we can respond in a neutral way, we can respond in a positive way. And if we respond in a negative way, then we're going to have a negative outcome, or more likely to have a negative outcome. If we respond in a neutral way, we're more likely to have a neutral or a positive outcome. If we respond in a positive way, we're more likely to have a positive outcome. So if we respond in an unhelpful way, we don't just notice the emotion, we associate into that feeling, i.e., we get the full experience of the feeling. For instance, if someone is angry, they inhabit that feeling of anger. They feel it and they act from it. They might, if they're driving, they might drive in an angry mode. If they're speaking to someone, they might, when they walk into the office, they might speak in an angry way. I always remember working somewhere, and one day this chap walked in and he slammed his briefcase on the desk and said, I've had a really bad journey into work, I'm in a really bad mood, so no one better upset me any further. And someone just turned around to him and said, look, listen mate, sorry you've had a bad journey into work, but get over it. Don't bring your attitude into the office. Okay? So, but we've all done that. We've got angry or upset and we act from that place. So the question is, how do we shift from that unhelpful response into either a more neutral response or a more positive response? In this video, I'm going to focus on exploring the neutral response, a meditative approach. At the end of this video, I'll tell you how you can access another resource where I share a more positive response. So I'm going to share a 4-step process, and the first step is to acknowledge our responses. So to acknowledge our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, ask the question, what am I feeling? So name the emotion, the thoughts, the feelings. It's a bit like saying hello or welcome to them. So the very act of doing this moves us from fear, or being in that, what some people call that lower self, to trust, or that higher self. Coach Michael Neal says that when we operate from fear, it's like being on the ground floor of a building. And we can get in a lift and go to a higher floor, and we see things from a different perspective, a bigger perspective. We see the bigger picture and can put things in context. And that's what we do in the second step. We actually recognise that we have a choice. We don't have to step into our feelings. We don't have to get into a negative conversation with our feelings. We don't have to be driven by the feelings. We don't have to get into a fight with those responses. We can actually allow that emotion. We can feel that emotion. So, for example, if we're feeling sad, we might decide it's okay to feel sad. But we're not doing that from the sort of fear-based place, that lower self, where, for instance, we feel the sadness and then get into a whole conversation. Will I ever get well? Am I ever going to move forward? Now, if we notice that we're doing that, we can just step back again and notice that feeling, acknowledge that feeling. Okay, I'm generating this thought right now. We can just notice it, allow ourselves to notice that we're doing it. And this brings us back into that place of coming from, instead of reacting to it, we're just starting to take charge. So if we're doing that from that place of trust, that place of calm, that place of wisdom, we're maybe saying to ourselves, this will pass. So as I say, if we notice a reaction, a thought that's unhelpful, we can just allow that. We can notice it. So we're not having to try and fix anything. We're just noticing. And if we practice that, we can get to the point where we're actually just observing. We notice those thoughts, we notice those feelings, and we just get to that point where we're simply observing it, we're aware of it, and we can still be aware of our breath. We can be present, we can experience that moment without launching into a big conversation. Okay, Stephen Brooks, who's a hypnotherapist, tells this story of he gave up his practice and he went to live in a Buddhist monastery in Thailand. And he said one time he decided to sit in his cabin in the woods and to meditate. So he starts meditating, and then there's a knock on the door. So he goes to the door, he has a chat to the person at the door, then off they go. He goes back to meditate. Then there's another knock on the door, and this time he says, "Go away." And eventually they go away, and he goes back to the meditation. And then there's another knock on the door, and this time he just acknowledges that there's a knock on the door. He notices it, and then he lets go of any thought about that and goes back to focusing on his breath. So sometimes it is just enough to adopt this meditative approach. And if it is, that's great. However, when I had MECFS, I noticed that sometimes a meditative approach wasn't enough, and I needed to explore what was going on further. So this is where we can take a more proactive approach. And if you'd like to know how to do that, then I've posted a link in the text, and if you click on that link, I will send you a resource to show you how to do that. So if you found this video helpful, do leave a comment below and say what you found most useful and what's one takeaway, one thing that you're going to apply. And if you like it, do please share the video. If you're watching on YouTube, do like and subscribe for more content. Maybe we could finish with a short relaxation exercise. Yeah. So what I want you to do is to make yourself comfortable and close your eyes. Obviously, only close your eyes if it's safe to do so. And I'm going to explain a very simple exercise which some of you might know. You can do this exercise, or you can do a relaxation technique of your choice, and we'll do it just for a minute or two. So what we're going to do is to focus on one of your hands, either left or right, and I'd like you to focus on the little finger on whatever hand you've chosen. And in a moment, not yet, what I'm going to get you to do is, as you breathe in, you're going to say a word to yourself. Could be any word at all. Peace, calm, love, trust. As you breathe out, you're going to say a different word silently in your head. Okay, could be one of those words or a different word. Then you're going to go to your next finger and do the same thing. As you breathe in, you say that word. As you breathe out silently in your head, you say that other word. Then you go to your next finger, you do the same thing. The next finger, the thumb. And then when you get to your thumb, you go back to your little finger and repeat the exercise. If you lose your place, you just choose a finger and carry on from there. If you catch yourself thinking about something, you just let that thought go as if it's floating on a cloud and go back to the exercise. So what I'd like you to do is before we start, just clock what score you are on a scale of 0 to 10 for calm right now, with 10 being very calm. So just make a mental note of that. And now I'd like you to close your eyes, and we'll do this, and I'm going to do it as well. We'll do this exercise just for 2 minutes, starting from now. Okay, so if you've just joined us, we're just doing a 2-minute relaxation. So maybe just again clock what score you are on a scale of 0 to 10 now, and put both numbers in the chat. So I'll give you a moment to do that. What score you were before we did that exercise, what score you are now. Otherwise, I will say thanks for watching, wishing you great health, and bye for now.